Hello, welcome, Cabbage here. In Nier Reincarnation, let's do the second fashion check for Griff. Previously, I did the kind of the uniformy, the more dress uniform of his Hatcher versions. Here, let's look at all of his Handout versions. And I can do kind of a channel announcement. I recently moved, and my new place is going to be more conducive to me making a new channel for fashion videos, so I'm seriously thinking about that now. I have been watching some other kind of fashion channels just to see, like, what's popular, and I have a lot of problems with those other channels, so it'll be interesting to see what kind of perspective I can bring, and then also what kind of presentation I can do with my channel. Okay, but in preparation for that, let's do a fashion check for Handout Griff. Here we have the 2-star version. This is kind of the most famous version of him. The first thing that jumps out to me is the jacket. It is kind of like a suit jacket. What we think of as like, the business suit or whatever, does actually derive from military uniforms. And we can see here, like the collar, we call this a turn-down collar. If we look at it from the back, we can see the overlap behind the neck there. The old military uniforms, they used to button up all the way to the neck, and then that collar would stand up and then kind of go around the neck. And so, this is actually more kind of like a suit jacket rather than a military uniform. But this color, this is kind of somewhere in between gray and khaki green. That's pretty standard for military uniforms. And then the length of the coat is very interesting because it's very short. However, it is actually buttoned in the correct place for where a suit jacket will want to be buttoned. It's about where the belly button would fall, or a little bit above. But we can look at like the length of the jacket below where the button buttons, and that's very, very short. If we look at it from the back, does not cover the rear at all. A kind of a typical length of a suit jacket would cover the rear completely. And then, if this jacket just had like the regular length sleeves for a suit jacket, it would go all the way to where like to the bone, of the wrist, and that would be well below where the length of this jacket is. So this is kind of a weird proportion. And these might be pocket flaps in the front here, but those would be very little pockets. So yeah, kind of a weird jacket. Very cropped sleeves as well. But what happens when you get like kind of a very cutaway jacket, with like missing fabric, I guess you could say, is that you get a much more kind of a slim, trim look, which is what Griff is going to have over the majority of his costumes. Looking at the side, we got kind of a tie on the sleeves there. This could be like an adjustment for the military, especially. You can't make a whole lot of sizes to fit a whole bunch of bodies. You have to kind of build or create these garments so that they fit large and then can be adjusted in other ways. That's where like belt loops and stuff come in, that kind of a thing. Okay, looking at the trousers, let's see, if that is where the belt is, I'm looking at this kind of shiny part here in the center. Yeah, that might be the belt buckle. It's kind of a medium rise pant, not very high, not very low. And very slim through the leg. And then boots, these look fairly standard for military. Although those contrast laces I don't think would work. There's got a little sash there, that would not be allowed in the military, I'm sure. Gun holster, fine. Ammo. And we got ammo belt over the shoulder as well. And it kind of looks like he has a holster around his arm, or his upper arm there, but there's nowhere to put the gun. So yeah, just there for kind of a fashion bit of detail. Oh, and I should mention his shirt before we go. Let's see. It doesn't have a fold-down collar like the points, you know? It has just kind of the base collar, like we would see on a grandfather collar. Although it looks like it has either stripes or ruffles. I'm guessing it's not going to have ruffles like a tuxedo shirt. Stripes, though. That would be unusual for a field uniform. Okay, that was 2-star Griff. Okay, next we got 3-star Griff. This is from Launch, if I remember correctly. He looks very dandy, kind of a James Bond. But yeah, this is the most up my alley as far as a suit style. Alright, let's get in close. So similar color here, kind of somewhere between gray and khaki green. Okay, interesting. The previous jacket, that had a notch lapel. This has a peak lapel. So we can see like where the buttonholes are, that they're kind of pointing up rather than coming down. That's kind of a dandy feature. But unlike before, where the suit jacket derivative of the military uniform would have the notch lapel and is meant to go all the way up, to be buttoned all the way up, the jackets with the peak lapel are not meant to be buttoned all the way up, so that's a deviation from the previous kind of military uniform heritage. And then this jacket has buttonholes on both sides, which is very unusual. Usually it's just on the Griff's left side, our right side, because that is the one that is supposed to be buttoned when you go all the way up. And then looks like we have a little bit of piping detail, kind of a light-colored white piping around the edge of the collar. Although typically when you have this, it will go down all the way to the bottom of the jacket, so it's kind of disappearing where it folds over. So I'm going to chalk that up to just kind of lack of knowledge of kind of suit construction by the artist, and then maybe the 3D modeler. Okay, and then we can look at the buttons here. So here we see 2 buttons. These are very close together. This is not typical. But if you were to button that top button there, the top of the 2, it would button, you know, at the belly button or a little bit above, which again would be correct. And looking at this, I don't see any pockets on the jacket. That's unusual and inconvenient. Alright. Let's see. As for the shirt, that looks like a semi-spread collar. That's more formal, but he has a very informal, kind of almost a handkerchief tied around his neck. And then a pocket square. I like pocket squares. I think they can break up sort of the monotony or like the heaviness of a suit if you put that in the pocket there. This pocket square is a little bit conservative but also fun. It's a very neutral, sort of a beige color, folded very conservatively, but it's at a funky angle and there's quite a bit of it showing, so yeah, it's kind of fun. Let's see, we got the belt there again. This might be another medium-rise pant. And then very slim legs, and very cropped, as we can see there, well above the bone of the ankle. This is personal preference, but it's not very formal. But perhaps part of the reason why he wanted such a short pant is that he has a very slim leg, and he's also wearing it with a boot. You might run into trouble where the pant leg gets caught on the top of the boot, and you have kind of a crinkle there. Wouldn't look very elegant. So if you shorten the length of the leg, you will have a pant leg that's falling more cleanly, more straight. So that could be the intention there. And then looking at the boot, this is a very old style that we don't see anymore. I forget what it's even called, but it's like a separate piece of leather. But besides that kind of attachment, that's a fairly typical looking boot, maybe a 6-inch boot. And then also a cap toe, extra piece of leather on the front of the shoe in order to raise the durability. That's fairly common for military shoes. You do want more durability there. And then he's got some contrast socks here. I'm not a fan of like contrast socks or party socks or statement socks, whatever you want to call them. But this is just a simple color. There's no pattern, so I guess I can live with it. Okay, looking at the length of his shirt and jacket sleeve, that's pretty short. You want, well, a lot of people want the shirt sleeve to kind of cover completely the wrist, and then the shirt or the jacket length to actually hit about that much of the sleeve left. So overall, pretty short. Again, personal preference. I have skinny, bony wrists, so I do want to cover them up. Okay, one final detail here. He has an extra piece of fabric along the back of the jacket there. This kind of looks like dress shirt construction, but if this were like a more typical jacket, that line going down the center of his back would go all the way up to the neck. This also might be for more durability, or maybe a little bit of a waterproofness to have that extra piece of fabric along the back of the shoulders. Oh, and I should point out the sleeves as well. 3 buttons spaced. That's kind of unusual. The typical that we see these days is 4 buttons kissing, where they are overlapped with each other. Kind of an older style from maybe mid-century would be 2 buttons spaced. 3 buttons spaced. That's very unusual. Okay, here we have an event handout 3-star Griff. And for a lot of JP players, this is their favorite Griff. Maybe mostly because he's wearing glasses. It adds to his kind of like intelligent, sort of logical persona, which wasn't super apparent at first, but little by little, with more stories coming out, that is how his character has gone. Okay, let's have a look. Alright, so here we got the first real necktie. That's tied pretty well. We can see the dimple there underneath the tie. That takes a little bit of technique. I can hopefully show that off in a future video. However, the size of the knot is a little bit too big. What kind of determines like the size of the knot that you want in your necktie is partly determined by the width of the tie itself. This looks like a slim necktie. So the size of the knot is kind of overpowering the width of the part that is hanging down. So I would do a smaller knot if I were Griff in this situation. Okay, let's look at this waistcoat, this vest. Very interesting with a slanted front piece there. I wonder if it's kind of like pseudo double-breasted, if it like buttons in the back on the other side. Maybe that would be for more just greater chance of like staying buttoned, you know? That would make sense, again, in the military if you were moving a lot, you know, out in the field. And here he has an actual gun holster with a gun in it. And then again, striped shirt. This is rolled to the elbow. When I roll my shirts, I like to go a little bit above the elbow so that I can actually kind of, you know, bend my arms. And then I like that he has kind of a consistency of the same color across various outfits. All that sort of military khaki green. Okay, trousers. These look like... what do these look like? Well... cotton, I'm sure. Perhaps wool, but they look a little bit more rough, so I want to say cotton. Alright, let's see if I can see the shoes. Okay, that is not military at all. This is what we would call a bit loafer. It's like the bit that you, that metal thing that you put into the horse's mouth when you are riding. Kind of a detail on the loafer there. The Gucci bit loafer is very famous for using these. But yeah, a very cool look to wear the loafers with a kind of a cropped pant and no socks. Alright, I think I like this look. Okay, we have another more recent Handout 3-star. This is kind of the Mission Impossible Griff. But we got a tight shirt there with a mock turtleneck, I think it is. A mock turtleneck is a one with kind of a high neck, which does not fold over. Cool look. And we got kind of a modern harness around his shoulders. Oh, and then there are a few more costumes of Griff, but they have more kind of modern military uniforms. I might cover those in a future video. We've just been looking at sort of more kind of formal or suit looks here. Trousers, we got some cargo pants here, that's cool. And pockets on the back with flaps over them. That's very casual. And then shoes, or boots again. Okay, these look pretty typical too. Oh no, these are a little bit more modern. They have a molded rubber sole with a grip on it. So that's cool. And then non-contrast laces, which I think is more appropriate for the military. But we still got the leather uppers, even if we do have the rubber sole. I am a fan of rubber soles on leather shoes. It can be dangerous to be walking around on leather soles as well. And another cool outfit. Alright, here we got Dark Memory, Griff. There are some similarities here to the Bloody Griff, which I talked about in the previous video. But kind of looks a little bit like the Italian police that I talked about there. But let's zoom in. So we got a double-breasted jacket. That's where the 2 rows of buttons are coming from. These belts hanging out of his lapel. I don't know what those are. But we got kind of an additional piece of fabric on the inside of the lapel, and then the collar there to add more contrast. And then we have, I'm guessing that's another necktie there. That one there, the size of the knot is more appropriate to the width of the tie. But another way to kind of choose the correct width of tie is to look at also other details of the jacket and the shirt. So that's kind of actually a very large collar on the shirt, and then pretty wide lapels on the coat there, and it's double-breasted. So actually, a wider tie would maybe work better. Wider tie, bigger tie knot. All right, but I talked about this in some of Lars's videos as well. But epaulettes, those are those straps on the shoulders, and we can see them used here for the very kind of a ceremonial thing to like show what rank you are, to hold the braids and things to also show your rank. Maybe some embroidery on the collar of the shirt there. That's interesting. Okay, here too we see kind of a two-piece, piece of extra fabric going across the back of the shoulders there. And as we move down, so here it's kind of like tails that you would see on a like an old tuxedo morning wear, where the back is very long, but the front is cut off. Typically, for morning wear or a tuxedo with tails, the front would only go as far down as the where the belt would lie, but this goes below. So this is kind of a weird mix of like a jacket plus a kind of a long coat in the back. Interesting look. Don't know how practical this would be, but if it's for ceremonial purposes, then kind of anything goes. Trousers look pretty normal, and then boots. Here we see some boots with no laces. But we also see kind of many panels, of different pieces of leather sewn together. The thing about leather is that the larger kind of pieces of leather you have, the more expensive it is. And so you can create a cheaper to make item of leather if you make it of a bunch of different pieces and then sew them together like we see here. And then for wartime, only the officers would get kind of boots this high, because that's a lot of material that you could use to make, more kind of lower shoes for more kind of infantrymen. And then let's look at the arm details. We see some cuffs. We see some kind of belts around the cuffs. That's usually there for one of two reasons for military garments. One is to kind of cinch the cuff so that you can keep in heat as you are, maybe staying out in cold areas. Or you can cinch it up in order to keep out the wet if you are out in the rain. Okay, another cool costume from Griff. This was the first Dark Memory that I ever unlocked. And hopefully soon we get the Recollections of Dusk version in black. Okay, and last costume for the video, we have the Handout Griff from the 2.5 anniversary, with kind of a circus theme. But after looking at it a little bit closer, there's a little bit of a steampunk in here as well. Alright, let's get in there. The first thing that made me think of steampunk was the goggles on the silk hat here. And let's do the customary hat size check. Let's see if this is actually big enough for him. This looks pretty close to good. As always, when you are fitting a hat of this type, you want it to hit the forehead, a little bit above the eyebrows. And then in the back, you want it to hit where the skull is sticking out the most. There is room for him to pull it down in the back, so it would hit the farthest part of the skull. He's just wearing it kind of at a forward angle, so I would call the size of this hat correct and good for his head size. And looking from the front as well, yeah, that's good. Alright. I think recently the hat game of Nier Reincarnation has been improved. We see a monocle here, which is for some reason attached like an eye patch. Typically monocles, well typically, who wears a monocle anymore? But typically a monocle would be on a chain, and then you would kind of hold it into your face with your muscles, I think it is. Alrighty. Let's look at neckwear. This looks like a cravat, or whatever you call it, but a very large kind of a silk handkerchief, which is loosely tied around the neck and then fastened with a pin there. And then on the jacket, looks like a fur collar, very luxurious, and a bunch of belts and things here, and almost kind of like a corset around the middle. Maybe this is a reference to like the gun holsters that he wears in other costumes. And then here, okay, in the previous costume, the Dark Memory, I talked about the length of the front when there are tails in the back, like with morning wear. This is actually closer to what is more normal. We got the tails here in the back, but the front goes down to where the top of the trousers would come. But Griff has 4 points on his tails here. It's much more common to have 2 tails on a tuxedo, for example, with tails. Alright, trousers. All of his trousers look pretty similar, but we got some stripes here. Makes me think of like a circus master or a butler. And then boots. Those might be fur-lined boots. That would be good for maybe cold weather. It's interesting. And we got some belts to fasten it there. Although really, once you've broken in the boot and it's molded to the shape of your foot, it should hold on to your foot and you would never have to cinch those belts. Interesting kind of square toe in the front. Or maybe they're just very pointy, kind of pointing to the sky. Yeah, that's what they're looking like there. Interesting. But yeah, pretty cool costumes overall. And I felt like I had a lot to say here with my suit knowledge. Next, I think I want to make a video about Hatcher versions of Demas. I've been waiting to do that one for a while. Okay, thanks for watching, and we'll see you again. Take care.